show last weekend in my hometown, Manchester, New Hampshire. It's where I went to high school. And before the show, the outgoing mayor, Joyce Craig, gave me this, a key to the city. Very cool. I think a lot of people would hang this on the wall so they could see it every day, feel proud about themselves. But I'm not that kind of guy. I'm gonna put it on the floor. Because I'm low key. See me next week. No? All right. Gonna be hard to follow, though. I said Harry Potter wouldn't wear New Balance, and it turns out there's a brand new shoe made specifically for wizards. Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus. See me next week. No? Harry Potter took place in 1991, came out in 1997. I remember when it came out, a lot of my friends read Harry Potter, former friends. I could not stay friends with people in their 20s who were reading books about, boy wizards. I was busy reading another book that came out in the late 90s, Infinite Jest. And I'm almost done with it. All tortoises are turtles. Good for them. I said begs the question. Many of you said that was incorrect. Based on the sentence structure, I should have said raises the question. So I looked it up, and here's what I found. The fallacy of begging the question occurs when an argument's premise assumes the truth of the conclusion instead of supporting it. In other words, you assume without proof the stand position or a significant part of the stand that is in question. Begging the question is also called arguing in a circle. So, thanks to that definition being super clear, I wrote up an example. A jackal said corrections was boring, self-indulgent, and long, begging the question, do I care? We, in a closer look, had transcripts of Trump going back and forth with the judge. Trump saying, am not, judge saying, sorry, Trump said, am to, judge said, am not. Am to, am not. People pointed out Trump should have said, am to. The judge should have said, are not. That is correct. We made a mistake. I went to Sal and I said, I don't think you're paying enough attention to the granular details of the closer look scripts. And he said, am to. We did a bit where Sidney Powell said the election was stolen by the ghost of Chester Cheetah and Mr. Peanut. This upset a lot of you. Because you all pointed out, you should have said Chester Cheetah and the ghost of Mr. Peanut, because Mr. Peanut did die. He died in January of 2020. This feels like a bit. This is not a bit. He died in an ad campaign. It was part of a Super Bowl ad campaign. Planners thought they could get away with killing Mr. Peanut because it's never sad when someone who wears a monocle dies. We said Rudy Giuliani did a paint by numbers of a unicorn, and then the graphic was very clearly a connect the dots of a unicorn. So, of course, I marched down to graphics, and I said, I'm very angry. And they were like, oh, no. We hope you're not mad at us. And I'm like, I am mad at you. They're like, oh, what did we do? And I was like, well, you know what bothers me is I asked for paint by numbers and you did connect the dots. And I think you did that on purpose because I think your kink is me coming down here and being upset. And they were like, oh, look who's connecting the dots now. I mimed, well, I didn't mime. We had fake cigarettes and I was smoking. And I was told by a bunch of people that's not how you smoke a cigarette. And it's true, I don't know how to smoke, never smoked. And so I can't correctly, fake smoke. And I'll regret for the rest of my life that I didn't smoke. So I don't know how to do it. The rest of my life, which based on actuarial tables will be a great deal longer than those of you who do. Mr. Pibb was rebranded to Pibb Extra in 2001. I guess what happened was Mr. Pibb got a divorce. And like a lot of divorce guys, he wanted to let everybody know he was like fun now. Who changed it up. Very funny that they didn't realize the problem with the name Mr. Pibb was Pibb. Like to change the name and keep the Pibb, which is just it's just unsatisfying to say Pibb. Oh yeah. Don't worry about Mrs. Pibb. She, after the divorce, married Mr. Peanut, then he died, and she's rolling in it. Cha-ching. Cha-ching. She's rolling, you know what she's rolling in? Legume money. They call me Mr. Pibb. I knew I'd get it in. Oh, this one. Again, the smoking thing, I was like, hey, we're gonna do it, and this brings us to a new bit. Seth mutters for a second. Stares off into the distance and mutters for a second. A bunch of you said, that was 47 seconds. That was more than a second. And my kids do that all the time, too. Like, I'll say, can you give me a second? And they'll be like, that was a second. And let me just say to all of you, my kids included, funny every time you do it. An expert reached out. And you know what kind of experts leave comments in the Correction YouTube page? The kind whose credentials you can't check. Expert reached out and said, most animal venoms would not be poisonous to ingest. So bottoms up, envenomation, I learned this word, envenomation is exposure to a toxin or poison resulting from a bite or sting from an animal. Devenomation is when you get bit by a poisonous animal and fall out a window. Hello? Mm-hmm. Okay. I was just told that was an old callback.
What are we doing? What is this? Why do I spend all day, like, emailing people asking them for an old phone? Like, what do I think's gonna happen?
Last week in corrections, I called it Shoemaker's Wedding, and a lot of you said it wasn't Shoemaker's Wedding, it was Shoemaker's daughter's wedding. But I can tell you around the office, when you call it Shoemaker's daughter's wedding, he will say, oh, she paid for it? A lot of you were mad that we showed me stumbling on the end of a closer look and still didn't tell you what I was saying when it sounded like I was speaking Welsh. What I was saying is get angry at prosecutors. Let's hear and see how close I was.
Get angry at prosecutors.
It's like I recorded it backwards. It's like David Lynch. Get angry at prosecutor. I talked about Jim Breyer last week, and someone wrote, "Who the hell is Jim Breyer?" I'm not going to tell you, but I will tell you those would be the last words you ever said if he was within earshot. Hey, Jim Breyer says you can't stay in there. Who the hell is Jim Breyer? People who go to Ren fairs are called Rennies. So keep that in mind if you're ever yelling at one out an open car window. Carnival workers are called carnival workers. Hey, we had a thing. We were talking about how new Speaker of the House and his son were on an app, told each other when they were watching pornography. It's like a pornography monitoring app. And then we said, thank God, Joe Biden and Hunter don't have that on each other's phone. And then I had Joe, his phone was bing, 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 and he took it, and he one of the things I had him say was, come on, Hunter, get a hold of yourself. More than one of you said if Hunter was watching pornography, he would likely already have a hold of himself. There just wasn't a lot this week. I know we have to fill it for the advertisers. At a certain length, just won't run their ads. Okay. We talked about Silence of the Lambs. Was it a well? Was it a cistern? There's a French word for it I always forget. Oh, oubliette. All I wanted was one. Thank you. The most heartbreaking thing that happened is you covered your mouth. If she does that again, slap those hands away. So someone said, was it a well? Was it a cistern? So a very actual helpful jackal went to the book, the Thomas Harris book, Silence of the Lambs, because there is clarity. These are the words describing it. In the basement room, directly beneath the kitchen, was a well, long dry, its stone rim reinforced with modern well rings. He wanted us to know it was a well so much, he put in that well rings part. Really hammered it home. The floor, a well floor. Of that, one could be certain. The doorbell rang. Jane Gum opened to reveal Agent Starling. How are you doing, she asked. Good, he said, knowing it was incorrect grammatically, but desperate not to get her thinking about wells. You know what this correction is? Not for everybody. On Halloween, I forgot to show this last week. On Halloween, an audience member came in costume, and her costume was Cue Card Wally. And I will just say, while we'll allow it once, people dressing like Wally is not helpful in regards to what we're affectionately referring to as our Wally problem. Oh, you know, when we have a music guest, I'll hold up the album art, because someone referred to the fact that I was holding the vinyl wrong. It is not vinyl. I'm not holding an album. It is simply the album art cut to be the size of an album. And I did not know that when I started the show. I had obviously, like the rest of you, I'd watched shows, and I had assumed it was an album. And I was so excited when I got the show that I would get an album every time we had a musical guest. And just imagine now, imagine after all the shows we've done, if I had an album from every musical guest we had. Just imagine, if that was true, imagine how many times my wife, Alexi, would have said to me, so do you have like a plan for all these records? This is what I forgot last week. Got another one of these in the mail. Nothing in the world could be worse than me. I'm the worst thing that you'll ever see. Excuse me real quick, what did you say? I'm worse than you each and every day. We're gonna in your nightmares. Okay. Can we take another thing? They're, by the way, those are tails. See me next week.